Final Fantasy, the Sundered Crystal Book 1's Echoes of the Bleed prologue. The end did not come with fire or flood. It came as a crack in a flawless sky. On Gaia, a mercenary with eyes like the planet's lifeblood looked up from polishing a sword that was far too large to be practical. The sky above Midgar, perpetually bruised by Mako pollution, had a new wound, a jagged scarlet line that wept light. It did not look like an aurora or a meteorological event. It looked like the world was breaking. In a world reborn from ruin, a half-esper with hair the color of new spring leaves felt a tremor not in the earth, but in her soul. Magic, a thing she had come to command and understand, suddenly felt alien, screaming with 1,000 dissonant voices. The sky above the fledgling town of Narshe fractured, the image of a distant, impossible silver moon momentarily superimposed over their own. In a land of blue seas and ancient faith, a young summoner stood on the deck of an airship, her mismatched eyes watching the far plane. The spirits were agitated, swirling not with the gentle acceptance of their fate, but with a panicked terror. A fissure of pure, crystalline energy tore through the veil of pyreflies, showing her a brief, horrifying glimpse of a city of towering black spires under a crimson sky. Across countless worlds, they felt it. The heroes who had saved their homes, the warriors who had slain gods and defied fate. They felt the fundamental laws of their existence groan, stretch, and then snap. The Great Crystal, the theoretical heart of all realities, the axis upon which every world turned, had shattered. And now its splintered children were bleeding into one another. Chapter 1. Where Steel Meets Magic. Cloud Strife knew the scent of a battlefield. It was a trinity of ozone, blood, and fear. This place smelled of all three, but with something else woven through it, the impossible aroma of salt sea air and old parchment. He stood on a twisted street of rust-red metal plates, the unmistakable architecture of the Midgar slums. Yet, 50 feet away, the road crumbled into white marble flagstones arranged in an elegant spiraling pattern he had never seen. A lamppost flickered with Shinra electricity, while next to it, a glowing crystal pulsed with a soft, magical light. The air was thick with a hazy twilight that was neither Mako glow nor natural dusk. His hand never left the hilt of the fusion sword on his back. Every instinct, owned by soldier training and sharpened by a life of fighting for survival, screamed that this place was wrong. Moments ago, he'd been on his way to Tifa's bar, Seventh Heaven, the mundane reality of delivery invoices in his pocket. Then the world had torn open with a sound like grinding continents, a wave of vertigo, a flash of unbearable light, and then this chimeric city built from the bones of his world and another. He was not alone. Across the impossible junction of metal and marble stood a woman. She was slender, clad in red leather and flowing silks, her hair a startling shade of mint green. She looked as lost as he felt, her eyes wide with a terror he recognized. The look of someone who had seen the world end once and was not prepared to see it happen again. Before he could speak, a noise echoed through the twisted alleyways. It was a rhythmic, mechanical clank accompanied by a low, bestial growl. From the shadows, a monster emerged. It was a grotesque fusion, a mockery of nature and technology. It had the quadrupedal body of a behemoth, its massive horns curling towards the sky, but its hide was patched with riveted steel plates. One of its forelegs was a pincer-like claw from a Shinra guard scorpion, and mounted on its back was the unmistakable laser cannon of a Magitech armor. The creature's eyes glowed with both a savage, feral intelligence and the cold, blue light of active machinery. Cloud didn't hesitate. Thought was a luxury. Action was survival. He drew the massive blade from its harness, the familiar weight a comforting anchor in this sea of unreality. The chimeric beast fixed its mismatched eyes on him, letting out a roar that was half bellow, half screeching metal. It charged. Cloud met it head-on, his blade carving a shower of sparks from its armored plating. The beast was strong, stronger than its individual parts should have been. It swiped with its guard scorpion claw, forcing Cloud to backflip onto a pile of rubble. The Magitech laser on its back began to charge, a high-pitched whine filling the air. He wouldn't make it in time. Watch out! The woman's voice was clear and sharp. A nimbus of white gold energy erupted around her. She thrust her hands forward, and a spear of pure fire, more intense and vibrant than any fire materia he had ever seen, slammed into the beast's side. It roared in pain, its laser blast going wide and incinerating a chunk of marble statuary. The distraction was all Cloud needed. He pushed off the rubble, blade held high. Mako energy, still thrumming in his veins, surged through him. Braver, he brought the sword down in a single cleaving arc, shearing through steel and sinew. The blade bit deep into the creature's neck, and with a final, shuddering groan of tortured metal, it collapsed. Its glowing eyes dimmed and went out. Silence returned, broken only by the unnatural hum of this merged reality. Cloud landed lightly, his breath misting in the strange air. He turned his gaze to the woman, his expression guarded, his sword held ready at his side. She flinched, taking a half step back. I didn't mean any harm. Who are you? Cloud's voice was a low baritone, rough from disuse. My name is Tara, she said, clutching her arms. Tara Branford. Where is this place? This isn't the world of balance. The magic feels all wrong. Magic? So she was a mage. That explained the fire. This is Midgar, he stated, then paused, glancing at the marble ruins. Part of it, anyway. Before their fragile, tense conversation could continue, a new sound reached them. It wasn't a monster. It was the crisp, measured tread of armored boots. From a street that looked like it had been ripped from a medieval castle, a figure emerged. He was tall, clad in ornate, gleaming silver armor that seemed to drink in the dim light. A horned helmet obscured his face, but the way he carried himself spoke of discipline and immense power. In his hand, he held a long sword that shone with a holy luminescence. He was a stark contrast to Cloud's dark attire and Terra's vibrant colors, a figure of pure, righteous light. He stopped, his unseen eyes surveying the scene. The dead monster, the soldier, the mage. By the light, the knight whispered, his voice resonating from behind his helm. What sorcery is this? He raised his holy sword, its point aimed not at Cloud or Terra, but at the sky. Another rift, another world's echo. Cloud shifted his stance, placing himself between the knight and Terra. Another one, he muttered. Who are you? The paladin lowered his sword, his posture becoming less aggressive, more inquisitive. I am Cecil Harvey, former commander of the Red Wings of Baron. He looked from Cloud's impossible sword to Terra's trembling form. And like you, I believe I am very, very far from home. As he spoke, the ground trembled again. This time, the very fabric of their reality seemed to shimmer. For a heartbeat, the image of a fourth person flickered into existence beside them, a cocky, blonde-haired youth with a prehensile tail, who vanished as quickly as he appeared. The scarlet crack in the sky above widened, and from it, something vast and terrible began to descend. It was a castle, a floating Gothic nightmare of impossible spires and chained moons, wreathed in dark energy. It was a place of finality, a monument to the end of time. Cecil's breath hitched. Ultimisia's castle. Terra stared in horror. The floating continent. Cloud's eyes narrowed, a single chilling name forming in his mind. The Northern Crater. It was all of them, and none of them. A fortress of endings, a citadel of doom drawn from a dozen worlds. And from its highest tower, a single, malevolent intelligence watched them, its laughter echoing not in their ears, but in the deepest, most sacred corners of their minds, a symphony of madness, nihilism, and chaos. The three heroes, strangers torn from their own sagas, stood together under a broken sky. Their individual battles were over, their worlds saved. But a new war, a war for all worlds, had just begun. Their final fantasy was far from over. Book outline title, Final Fantasy, The Sundered Crystal. Logline, when a cosmic cataclysm shatters the barriers between worlds, a band of legendary heroes, each the savior of their own reality, must unite to confront a new, all-consuming threat that feeds on the echoes of their greatest triumphs and darkest fears. Part 1, Echoes of the Bleed. Characters gather. The core group, Cloud, Terra, and Cecile, are joined by Zidane Tribal, the Heart, Unit the Spirit, and Noctis Lucis Salem, the modern king. They meet in The Bleed, a chaotic, ever-shifting landscape made of fragments from their worlds. The guide, they are found by a Nexus Cid, a composite being who exists as the archetype of all Cids. He explains that a being known as Ouroboros, the Eater of Endings, has been awakened by the cumulative energy of their world-saving exploits. It is now consuming their realities to create a single static universe of perfect entropy. The goal, to stop Ouroboros. They must restabilize the core of the multiverse, the Sundered Crystal, by finding its three largest shards, the Shard of Memory, the Shard of Will, and the Shard of Hope. Part 2, Journey Through a Shattered Tapestry. The Shard of Memory. Domain, Spira, the Lifestream. The team travels to a world fragment, combining Spira's ethereal beauty with Gaia's lifestream. They are hounded by echoes, phantasmal recreations of their friends and foes, born from their strongest memories. Yuna and Cloud take center stage, confronting the ghosts of Titus and Aerith, learning that memory is a source of strength, not just pain. They retrieve the shard from a corrupted version of Sin, now fused with a weapon. The Shard of Will, domain Baron Avelis Insomnia. This domain is a land of warring kingdoms, a chaotic blend of medieval castles, advanced magitech, and modern city-states. The politics and warfare test the group's unity. Cecil and Noctis are forced to confront the meaning of leadership and the weight of their crowns. They must forge an alliance between warring factions led by echoes of Judge Gebranth and Ravus Nox Fleuret to claim the Shard of Will from a reborn Ultima weapon. The Shard of Hope, domain the world of ruin Cocoon, a desolate, dying landscape ruled by despair. The sky is dominated by the crystalline shell of Cocoon, now cracked and dark. This is the domain closest to Ouroboros' influence. The team's morale is at its lowest. Terra and Zidane, the group's most resilient optimists, must rally the others and the downtrodden inhabitants, led by an echo of Sid Reigns, to fight back against the embodiment of despair, a near-omnipotent echo of Kefka, who revels in the unmaking of all things. Part 3, The Heart of Nothing. The final confrontation. With the 3 shards, Nexus Sid opens a path to the Heart of the Bleed, a non-space where Ouroboros resides. It is not a monster to be fought, but a sentient philosophical void. The ultimate test. Ouroboros confronts each hero not with a physical fight, but a mental one. It offers them their heart's desire. A world where Aerith lived, where Zidane's people were never lost, where Noctis didn't have to sacrifice himself. They must willfully reject their perfect fantasy for the sake of an imperfect reality. The Sundered Crystal Restored. By rejecting the Void's temptations and combining the power of the shards, they don't destroy Ouroboros, but instead use their collective will, memory, and hope to reform the Great Crystal. This act of creation pushes the worlds apart, healing the bleed. Epilogue. A fading dream. The heroes share a final silent moment as their realities pull them home. They know they will not retain the explicit memories of this journey, but the emotional bonds and lessons learned will remain, leaving them subtly changed. Cloud allows himself a rare, genuine smile. Yuna looks to the sky, no longer just at the past, but to the future. Noctis accepts his throne with a newfound peace. Their individual stories continue, forever enriched by the fantasy they shared.